Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play, Pause, Rewind, our 59th episode. We are back on our normal release schedule. Finally, my travel is over. I'm making it easier for us once again. But yeah, it's been a little bit. Niles, how have you been the last week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever?
Been good. Living every day as it comes. Got to spend some good quality time with family recently and,
Mm-hmm.
connect with some friends who moved away and then came back for a little bit. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah,
And, you know, just plugging along. Got to go skiing, which is always fun.
that
Very
is
late in the
fun.
year, too.
I know, yeah, but
Um,
we had snow last week or this weekend.
yeah, Colorado is unpredictable sometimes,
Yes.
but it's also predictable. We're in the second false spring of
Mm-hmm.
Colorado right now. We're probably going to get some snow tomorrow, which is fun. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
almost May. How are you,
Yep.
Dylan?
Pretty good. I also got to hang out with the same friends that you did, which was nice. And I also saw family, but different people than your family because they're not
Wow,
the same.
look at us.
Yeah, so we did the same things but separately. Otherwise, good, just on the job hunt still. Tucker Carlson got fired today, so that was exciting.
Yes.
That was that kind of made my day. I love when bad things happen to bad people. It feels
Yes.
good.
It felt vindicating a little
I
bit for
know,
sure.
I know. I'm very excited to learn more. But before we get into our main topic, as many of you will know, next week is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Haha. So
Woo.
we're doing a little bonus video. It's going to be on our second channel, Play, Pause, Rewind videos. And if you're interested
Mhm.
in that, all of our non-spoiler sections are going up there 2 a week and along with YouTube Shorts and other content like what we're putting up there. Next week will be there as well, and we're just gonna sit down in person for once and do a retrospective on the original trilogy. So all three
Mhm.
movies, we're gonna sit down in the same room and talk about them. So look for that on May the 4th. And I think I'm excited. We've never shot something in person together, so it'll be really fun, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, it'll be a good test run and see if it works out well. And we're planning to do more of those rewind episodes in the future too.
Yes,
And we wanted to start off with Star Wars because it's, you know,
because it's us.
obviously, yeah, it's us. It's we love to talk about it. It
Mm-hmm.
resonates with us, and we're talking about Star Wars today. So obviously, we
Yes.
love this genre, or at least love to watch it and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's a
Um,
title reveal too. Rewind, Niles mentioned, will be the name of that series where we'll take a look back at something older. Most of our episodes are pretty new releases. So,
mhm.
Rewind, we'll use that part of our show name for this. But yes, as Niles also alluded to, we are talking about The Mandalorian season 3 this week. And
Mhm.
it's the third season of The Mandalorian, created by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Continues the adventures of Mandalorian Din Djarin and his adopted child, Grogu, in the years after the events of the original trilogy. It stars Pedro Pascal, Katie Sackhoff, Emily Swallow, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, and many more. You all know what this is.
Yeah,
I think
at
we
this
can.
point, yeah, it's The Mandalorian. We've come
Yes.
to know it. Um, Dylan, what are your initial thoughts on season three? Oh, and before we dive
Mm-hmm.
into, we also have season two. We recorded an episode on that in the
Our
past.
second
So,
episode ever. Yeah.
yes, our second episode ever, over 50 episodes ago. Jeez. So if you're curious to hear about season two, our thoughts on that, please go check it out. I
Mhm.
encourage you. But Dylan, what are your thoughts on season three of The
Yeah.
Mandalorian?
So I'm not sure this show really works for me that much anymore. I feel as though the show now operates this space in no man's land between highly serialized storytelling and highly episodic storytelling. Um, I don't feel like there's enough narrative momentum through the season to really work as a season long arc. And most, if not all, of the episodes don't really work as standalones enough to be enjoyed like that.
Mm,
So I'm kind of in a weird spot with this. It's my least favorite season of the show.
yeah.
Uh, I don't hate it, but it's just kind of there, you know? And it's It's tough because I'll talk more later, but what are your initial thoughts before we
Yeah, I
dive
feel like I'm in a bit of a similar area as you on this. I agree this isn't my favorite season of the show. I think
in?
the first two seasons, they're definitely the fire. They're the best ones compared to the third one.
Yeah.
This season to me kind of felt a little bit more like a bicycle ride through hills. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a hilly journey. There's not so many like peaks and valleys. It's like, okay, we're just kind of going on a nice little pleasant stroll here. But yeah, there's not a lot of like serious development, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. I'm I'll say I think I'm more positive on this season than you are.
Okay.
I feel like I'm mostly positive for a handful of reasons, which we'll get into, and spoilers, of course. But I think that there's some parts of this show that could have done a lot better. And I'm also kind of torn on this season too, because it does deliver on some things that I've been asking for and what
Mm-hmm.
I've wanted to see in Star Wars too. We've talked about this before too, where Star Wars as a series and like as a kind of genre now,
Mm-hmm.
it hides behind this wall of it's poetry, it rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a lot of copy and paste, boring, repetitive, formulaic tropes. And it's not all boring, of course, but you see a lot of things kind of being recycled over and over again.
Yeah.
And
Well, even episode 7, which I
yes.
love and I think you do as well, like the the one element that I will agree with people on that it played it too safe is that the First Order is basically just the Empire again, and we've quickly returned to the
Mm-hmm.
status quo of Rebels versus Empire. And that I think is negatively impacting these TV projects now because we'll talk about that more in spoilers too. But I think that was it worked for me at the time in Force Awakens, and I still think Force Awakens is a great movie, and I think The Last
Mm-hmm.
Jedi is even better. But that decision to destroy the Republic and have it be like a complete non-entity is very much hampering this era of storytelling now because they're
Yeah.
having to do things that maybe aren't as interesting as this era could be.
Yeah. And that's kind of one thing too, is that the Mandalorian is set in this realm of the chronological diegesis of Star Wars, between the OG trilogy and the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to find this way to create a new narrative in this time period where we haven't really explored. So we got plenty to work with, obviously,
Yeah.
but your start and your end point where you got to get to where you've already been, and you can't break the canon. You have to respect the mythos of the world. You have to
Mm-hmm.
work with it, and so that is kind of a tough job, especially since the sequels are so disorganized. They're so slapped together willy nilly, like they didn't have a plan, and so now it's kind of like up to Dave Filoni to kind of like pick up the pieces and try and like, okay, let's connect these points a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about this before. I disagree about the like sequels being slapped together until the end,
Sure.
but I think part of the problem I'm starting to have with this show and a lot of the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff, excluding Andor, is how connected it is attempting to become. Like
Mm,
this series started as a show about a bounty hunter who finds a baby and wants to care for the baby, and that is a very small stakes show, and as it's gone on it's becoming more and more intertwined with like Luke Skywalker and the Republic and the rising empire, and I don't know if that's what this story needs,
mm,
because we're losing what the appeal of the show was initially. And if they want to change it,
yes.
that's fine. But now I would say season 3 feels significantly different than season 1, to the point where they're not even the same show. Not really.
Oh yeah, I mean the first episode of The Mandalorian, it's him like hunting down this bounty with an
Mm-hmm.
assassin droid, and he kills the assassin droid at the end because of this child, and he's like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, this is interesting. This is a little baby, and now I feel
Mm-hmm.
some kind of paternal kind of connection to it a little bit. I want to
Yeah.
protect it." And then now the most recent episode, not to get too far into spoilers, is he's helping like a bunch of Mandalorians retake this planet. It's like the stakes have just like vastly multiplied,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's so involved with like all these different factions.
Yeah. Um, let's see what else we got
And I
here.
would,
Oh,
yeah.
go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, like, to kind of piggyback off of what I was starting out on earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of pivoted. But going back to like it's poetry, it rhymes kind of thing about Star Wars. Like it does
Mm-hmm.
kind of get boxed in. And one of the things that I want to see in Star Wars is these new, unique ideas, these bold narratives, these things that just are so vastly different. And that's kind of what the Mandalorian started out as. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
bounty hunter trying to make his way in the galaxy. And that's
Yeah.
fascinating because we haven't explored that before.
Mm-hmm.
I just want something that's reminiscent of Star Wars, but is entirely its own thing. It's doing something new. It's exploring another aspect of it. That's kind of what I liked a lot about Star Wars Visions.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we've talked about on the show before, go listen to
Yeah.
that episode. But that's an anthology series
Mm-hmm.
where every episode's unique. It's a different animator. That allows these creators to do these brand new narratives, these brand new stories with new elements and explore these new areas of Star Wars, which
Mm-hmm.
is just awesome. And
Yeah.
that's what I want in Star Wars. And that's what this season has kind of delivered on for a
Okay.
little bit with some of this world building and the mythos building and some of these
Mm-hmm.
other smaller elements. But it does kind of come back to some of these things that we've seen before. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of me that's torn on that because it did give me something that I wanted, but not all the way, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I think you mentioned Visions, and I think that's a really good contrast point because I am now in a place where the creative motivation for something like Visions is kind of just what I want from Star Wars
Mm,
overall. Just let creative people do their shit in whatever they want. Maybe the things are connected, maybe they aren't, but I think
mm-hmm,
that harkens back to the origin of Star Wars with like the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, Hero of a Thousand Faces, like myth, the power of myth, right? Like Star
mm-hmm.
Wars, we've gotten so into this zone of very tight continuity and canon that I think we're losing some of the mystique of Star Wars. Like
Mm,
we and this goes back to before our time, but like we now know what the Clone Wars were and what the fall of Anakin into Darth Vader looked like. But if you're just watching the original movie for the first time, it's like you fought in the Clone Wars. It's like you don't need to see what that is. It's just like
mm-hmm.
a line. It's like what could that have been? And that is an element of Star Wars that I think we've lost. But in the vein of doing something really new, I think Andor does a really great job of that. And I think
Yes.
coming off of just having watched Andor a few months ago and coming back to this was very hard for me
Mm-hmm.
as a viewer because this and it's been said all over the place during the last month and a half, but the show to me at this point really does feel like two grown men playing with action figures instead of writing a story about characters. And
Yes.
but that is becoming my biggest problem with the show is everyone is so static at this point.
Yes. I would agree with that. And I think that's a good way to frame it. Because yeah, the only character that really sees a lot of development this season is Bo-Katan, I would
Mm-hmm.
argue. Like you got Grogu in there getting some development, and that's great. But like Din Djarin, I feel like he's kind of a side character a little bit in this season to her adventures. He's like, I'm gonna help you out and kind of be in the
Mm-hmm.
background. He does have agency, obviously, and he is still the main character, but I think that she's the only one who gets a lot of like the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I see what they're just trying to like tie it up together, complete her journey, like put a bow and connect it all together like a nice little
Uh,
present. But yeah, I think that some parts of the season they just didn't feel as earned as others. Or
mm-hmm.
like even with Andor, like every beat along that season, that first season of Andor is just so earned. Like it's just breathtaking.
Yeah.
You get so much great character development, and you've never met any of these characters before except for one of them, and he
Mm-hmm.
dies, in the movie that we got to meet him in.
Yeah.
And this one, The Mandalorian, season 3, it is really just one person getting stretched out, or at least like the clan is getting some more development, I would say.
Yeah, a little bit. I want to talk more about the clan later on in spoilers because I don't want to
Yes.
ruin
Yeah.
things that happened. But it just another issue I have here is I think the look of the show has gotten worse a little bit. Think back to
Mm,
that first episode of the show when he's walking across that icy lake and then he's silhouetted against the doorway of the cantina, and
Yeah.
then compare that to any shot of this season, like the one episode where they're on the Paradise planet and it deals with like the droids, and celebrity cameo episode. I'll say later who they are, but it's like they're just flatly lit in a flat grass field.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing's around them, and I'm like, this just it looks like I'm watching Modern Family.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
It's just it's lost something in the visual department, and I'm not going to blame everything on the volume, because season 1 used the volume a whole lot, but like any tool, you got to know how to use it and how to light properly and all that stuff. And we talk about visuals a lot with Marvel as well, but it's affecting the show too, I think.
Sure, yeah. I felt like the visuals, I will agree with you for the most part there. I think that there were certain parts where I thought they looked really good. But like they are just like a few shots here and there. It's not like every episode looks great and well lit and everything like that. It does. I feel like I don't even know how much of the volume they used to create the show. I assume they still used it pretty regularly. But yeah, I feel like we talked about this with Thor too. We are starting to see the like limitations of this technology, and like it's not a solution. Yeah, just like you said, it's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. Exactly. And it's not that it's a bad tool. It's a very powerful and capable tool. Like the Batman uses it very well. Season 1 of this show uses it very well. But it's just you can't use a hammer to eat cereal, I guess. Like
yes, that's fair.
And I will compliment the visuals in one area. I think the computer generated models for like the ships and everything like that look pretty stellar when they're flying around the space battles, or there's one through like canyons. I think it looks really good.
Yes, it's just I like those parts.
Let's see what else we got in non-spoilers that you want to talk about.
Well, I would also say one thing that I was kind of pleasantly surprised with too was that the season took a direction that I was not expecting to take. I thought it was going to be more of like Bo-Katan versus the Mandalorian, kind of both vying for the power because of the Darksaber and the ability to lead Mandalore. Was not that at all. And I'm honestly glad that they didn't take that direction, because that would have, I think that would have been a little messy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of neat that they went the direction that they did with it. Yeah.
One thing I did appreciate about this season, and it's not really a spoiler, I don't think, but the main conflicts of the season are solved by the main characters of the show. That is something that season 2 did not do. So I appreciate maybe they heard that feedback and decided not to have a Luke Skywalker type show up in the finale and solve all of their problems. So thank you for that. Kudos to that very basic element of storytelling. But I think I will say, I'm not like, I don't hate it. I'm not upset by it in the same way that something like Rise of Skywalker upset me. It's just kind of, it just doesn't excite me anymore. It's just kind of a thing that I can watch when it comes on, and I'm not like eagerly anticipating the next episode, because I didn't feel like any episode really set me up to care about what happened next. But it's not anger inducing. It's just become a mediocre show, I think.
Sure, I get that. Because, I think that there's still parts of the show that I like a lot. Like, I love Baby Yoda. When I was watching that first episode, I was just entranced by him again.
Yeah, he's fucking cute.
He's so cute. He was such a great idea. So kudos a million times to them. And I like a lot of the action sequences. I really enjoy the lore building and the world building in this season too. Like, we'll talk a little bit about that more in the spoilers. But I think that some things that I wish were better were just the character development traits of this season and the emotional stakes, like kind of like what you were just saying of, I'll watch it, but like, I don't think that the hype is there that was there from the first season. Like, I remember people loved the first season.
Oh, yeah.
My brother and I would quote it back to each other all the time of like, this is the way, or I want to see the baby, like we would just say that back and forth all the time, because it was just awesome. It's phenomenal at the time. And then now it's like, what lines can I really quote from this season? Is there anything? Does it live up to the hype anymore? I don't believe so. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad season or anything like that. I just think that there were things that could have been better. And if they put in just a little bit more effort, maybe they could get there. But
Yeah, I will say one thing I did find genuinely charming is that whenever Grogu is doing his little like flips and shit, because he does that now, they
yeah,
very clearly just took the puppet and just chucked it into the
yeah.
frame. And I like, you might think I'm critiquing the show for that, but no, it's very funny to see it just like a completely still puppet just go like
I love it.
in one scene, they actually a character throws him to another character, and it's fucking hilarious. It's such a stupid scene.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Grogu does not disappoint.
no. Um, but I will say it's like the show feels more like a Saturday morning cartoon than the actual cartoons did at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was intentional or not. And it's like if you want the show to be for like babies, more power to you. That's great. But I don't think it started out that way. Maybe it did, and I was just
Yeah.
younger, but it it's changed in tone a little bit. It is more wacky hijinks than it used to be, I think.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yes.
But should we do some spoilers?
Yeah,
Spoiler
let's get into
time?
some spoilers because we're dancing
Yeah.
around some things. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so now we'll dive into spoilers so we can anything's on the table now. We'll talk about whatever and whenever,
All
any
right.
part of the show. I think first we got to get the big elephant
Yeah, the
out
biggest what
on
the
the
fuck
table.
move.
What the fuck was this move, guys? What the fuck was this move?
So if you don't know, uh Favreau and Filoni made the incredibly wise decision to what basically walk back the pretty emotional finale of season 2 in another show. So if you don't remember, season 2 ends with the Mandalorian allowing Grogu to go with Luke Skywalker to go be a Jedi. And that is I have a lot of problems with Luke in that scene. We've talked about them
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere before, not going to get into it here, but that element between Grogu and Din Djarin is very, very good. And
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, we take 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett to reunite them with each other. We spend some time with the CGI nightmare faced Luke Skywalker training Grogu. We spend some time with the Mandalorian on his quest to figure out that he needs to redeem himself, which he repeats that beat in this show. So people who didn't watch Book of Boba Fett can at least get caught up on that. But season
Mm-hmm.
3 just starts and he has Grogu again. If you didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, fuck you. They don't care.
Oh yeah, like my dad was asking me like what happened? Like did I miss something? I'm like, "Yes, you did. You need to watch a whole new show
Yeah.
to understand what
How did he
happened."
respond to that?
He was like, "I'm not doing that." Like like he didn't want to watch that other show anyways. He only wants to watch The Mandalorian if it's Star Wars. So it's like, you know, I think it is a big mistake of them to do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think honestly it was because they realized, oh, we wrote Grogu out of the show is really good. Oh, but shit, he makes us a lot of money. We need to figure out a way to write him back into the script, like bring him back into the story. I'm just speculating. Maybe they had it planned all along, but I think I think this is just a way for them to keep making money off of the merch.
Okay.
That's just my theory, but it is so stupid to
It's
structure
really dumb.
the introduction that way. Yeah, like why do
Yeah.
you reintroduce some character in another show?
Yeah. And it's my problem with it is I never doubted that they would reunite eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But that could have been your season 3 right there. They should have spent at least half of this season apart from each other. And then it would have felt
Yes.
emotionally satisfying when they reunite. But instead, and I really get mad at people who defend this decision. It's like, well, obviously Book of Boba Fett was Mandalorian season 2.5. It's like, shut up. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a good show either. It was like, and the
Yeah.
Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker episodes broke that show as well. It was just starting to build up its momentum when we take a 2-episode detour to fuck around with other characters. Bad decision. I know people say those are the best parts of that show. It doesn't matter. They were bad for the show.
Yes.
But you can't do that. And then Jon Favreau's response when someone in an interview asked him about that, he said there are plenty of YouTube videos you can watch to get caught up on all that. That's ridiculous.
That's a
I
bad excuse.
This is the dude who made Iron Man. What the fuck happened? Like,
Yeah.
and
Well,
Dave Filoni too. I've lost a lot of goodwill for Filoni's storytelling over the last 2 years, I think. Because coming off of
yes.
Clone Wars and Rebels, like it kind of felt like overall he could do no wrong. Those two shows have their rough patches, sure, but they're overall
Mhm.
pretty incredible Star Wars. I just something about his jump to live action has not translated his material very well, I don't think.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, yeah, like what you were just saying with spending the first half of this season, season 3,
Mm-hmm.
having just Mandalorian, Din Djarin reconnect with Grogu, that would have been perfect. That would have been a good amount of content to include. And
Mm-hmm.
then that could have set you up for like, an emotional ending to season 3. Maybe you have another
Mm-hmm.
confrontation with Moff Gideon. I don't know. Maybe it's not even him. Maybe it's that pirate guy. Like you could do so many things
Yeah.
and still have a good introduction or reintroduction of these two characters and have them connect, find somewhere in the middle. But this way, you know, even if you just like squeezed it in like 1 or 2 episodes at the start of the season, maybe you
Mm-hmm.
cut out some of that fat, like maybe cut out one of those middle episodes. I don't know. Get rid of one of them. You, you could still squeeze in that content and still communicate everything effectively to the audience,
Mm-hmm.
because this is just unnecessarily confusing. It's kind of disrespectful to the characters as well, and I feel like it's disrespectful to some of the actors too. And what I mean by that is mainly I'm I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but the actor for Boba Fett.
Oh,
Um,
Tamara Morrison, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, Tamara Morrison.
Tamara. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm so bad with
it
names.
sounds like I was reading today he was supposed to be in season 3 of this show and they just never called him. And
Disrespectful.
yeah, and it's like okay, but one, if he was supposed to be in this season, where, in
Hmm.
what capacity, like what was he supposed to do? And if the story wasn't going to include him, fine, whatever, but like at least talk to the fucking guy, like he's waiting on your call. um
Exactly. Yeah. Like he gave up 2 episodes of his show to The Mandalorian. It's
mhm.
like, are you going to give him any episodes from your show,
Yeah,
Mandalorian? Nah,
and
I don't think so.
yeah, and like I don't like the Book of Boba Fett. I think it's a pretty weak show. But
Yes.
there are ideas in that show that I found kind of charming. I think like relatively good guy gangster dad Boba Fett was kind of fun. And if they had
Hmm.
developed that relationship with him and his little like biker gang people, I think that would have been kind of charming and a different
Hmm.
take on the character. And have him be like a crime king of Tatooine going forward is kind of, I think that's entertaining. It's goofy, but
Yeah. Why
whatever.
not? I
And the
mean,
stuff with the
let
Tusken Raiders was genuinely good. But
yes. Yes.
but speaking of giving up episodes of your show to an entirely different storyline, let's talk about the
Mm,
scientist episode and the Imperial spy lady and everything that's going on Coruscant. How do we feel
yes.
about this? I have a lot of contradicting feelings about this episode specifically.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted on it too. But I think one of the greater elements of this episode and the season in general is the
Mm-hmm.
world building for the New Republic, and really fleshing out the history of this era a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more, like understanding uh, where the New Republic's coming from, like how the manpower transitions over with, the Re-Education Institute, I think it was
Mm-hmm.
called, or something
Amnesty
like that.
program, I think,
Yeah,
is
the
what it
amnesty
was.
program. So that was interesting to learn about that,
Mm-hmm.
because that whole concept, and we'll talk about that in a bit too, of just you have this entire workforce, this entire population of the galaxy that now is either going to be prisoners, or you can just re-educate them and re-enter them into society, and they can still
Mm-hmm.
sort of function, rather than just taking up a cell. So I thought that was neat for them to explore that
Mm-hmm.
area of Star Wars where there's a great deal of uncertainty. Um, and I enjoyed getting some insight into that scientist character too and
Yep.
his own story. At the same time, I don't know how much I needed it.
Yeah, I so first thought is I feel like this episode causes the same problem that those 2 episodes in Book of Boba Fett caused, because none of our principal characters are in it. This is just a totally separate part of the universe that is being plopped into this show, probably because they're trying to set up the Ahsoka show, and maybe they're folding in what Rangers of the New Republic was supposed to be before things happened. Um, and I feel like it breaks the momentum a little bit, but I do think there
Yeah.
were interesting elements of it. I I like seeing Coruscant in this era.
Yes.
It's a cool planet. I think it's one of my favorite elements of the prequels is this setting. Although I do feel like some parts of it looked really cheap, like when when the scientist and the Imperial spy lady were like walking in the park eating their popsicles or whatever, where they see the top of the mountain. Like
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
that's a cool idea for a location, but it was very flat, and there were like 10 people in it. Maybe there were
Hmm.
more, but it felt um nothing felt lived in on Coruscant, which is something nice I'll say about the prequels is as fake as everything in those movies looks, different parts of Coruscant, like they're busy, there are people doing things, and here it just felt too vacant for
Hmm.
a planet-sized city. Um, I also am a little confused about how the show wanted me to feel about this amnesty program and the New
Hmm.
Republic in general, because the amnesty program felt kind of creepy and brainwashy. And I'm curious if that was intentional, and if it's intentional, what do you as the writers want me to think of the New Republic as a government, as an institution? I don't
Hmm.
know. And if they want, like, it's supposed to be kind of inept and it fails very quickly. I get that. To the point where our main heroes of the original trilogy kind of fall out of love with it and do their own thing. But it felt, I don't know, the vibe was off. Do you agree with that at all, or not really?
I get where you're going with that.
Mm-hmm.
The amnesty program, I have conflicting feelings about too, because
Mm-hmm.
yes, on the one hand, you have this huge population, like I was just kind of saying, and what do you do with them?
Yeah.
Like, do you just like execute them? Do you put them in prison, or do
Mm-hmm.
you like re-educate them and put them in back into the general population? And I feel like I'm always going to go with option number three, because that's going to be the most
Mm-hmm.
effective use of resources. And I think there's a part of me that's trying to think through this situation
Mm-hmm.
through the eyes of the New Republic, which is unfortunately stalled by bureaucracy and order. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you are there. You're this government that's kind of put together really quickly to establish order in the wake of the collapse of the empire, which just
Mm-hmm.
ruled with an iron fist, had just like dominion over an unlimited amount of resources, plundered worlds. I'm sure people have like reservations against big government now. If they did not before, they definitely
Yeah.
do. So you have to kind of like, you have limited resources on the one hand, you have a population that probably doesn't want to put up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws a little bit here too,
Yeah.
because we don't know the full scope of things with the New Republic. But I think
Mm-hmm.
they are definitely at a disadvantage going into a government rule, if that
Right.
makes sense.
And they may have just been riffing off of Operation Paperclip, where the
Mm,
American government in the aftermath of World War II folded a very large amount of Nazi scientists and officers into the American um, institution, I guess,
yeah,
as part of the ramping up of the Cold War. Maybe it was just referencing that because the original trilogy, in a lot of ways, is kind of a lot of World War II imagery. Um, so
yes.
maybe it's not that deep. Maybe we're just digging into this too much. But it was just one of those things. I'm like, I and we'll talk about it again with droid stuff later on. But it's like there are just a couple things that new Star Wars shows and stuff are introducing that I'm like, what do you want me to feel about this? Because it seems like
Hmm.
you're just throwing some ideas in here without due consideration for like the ramifications this may have on your universe, which
Sure.
seems very important to them in some other ways.
Yeah. Well,
But
and I think with the New Republic too, I want to just kind of speak to it a little bit more
Mhm.
because, we've only seen a few different government structures, obviously, here with the Galactic Republic, the long-standing Republic, the Empire, and then the First Order. So we have, one form of kind of a democratic republic,
Mhm.
ones, and then the other two are these immovable fascist regimes.
Yeah.
We have these very stark contrasts, and so I think maybe to a certain extent, I'm just kind of reflecting on my own childhood here too. When I'm
Mhm.
thinking back to the rebellion, they are just a bunch of good guys. They're infallible. Like I can't find any
Right.
kind of like shortcomings or just like, flaws in their thinking or their
Mhm.
logic or any of their characters really. But
It's
that's not
very
how
good
people
versus
are.
evil. Yeah.
Yes, it's very good versus evil. And that I think one thing that the prequels did well,
Mm.
one of the few things, was establishing how the Republic was stagnant and it had
Mhm.
stalled out because of bureaucracy, because of these politicians that didn't want to do anything or change. These Jedi that were kind of the gatekeepers or the guardians of the Republic and kind of protectors as well of order,
Mhm.
and they were ineffectual as well because
And
there was such a
dogmatic.
big
Yeah.
imbalance. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I think maybe that's what they're trying to do with this new republic is to say, yes, these guys are technically the good guys, but not
Mhm.
everyone's good. There's everyone kind of has these failing characteristics, and that even branches into the government structure.
Mhm.
We did get to see some cool parts of Coruscant, but the wealthy are still wealthy, and we even saw that during the scientist episode where they're like, "Yeah, who are we? Who are you guys again? Are you the? It's not the Empire anymore. It's the New Republic. That's right."
Yeah.
Like they're so removed from the
Yeah.
action in the government
I
and
kind of felt
everything.
like that was Baby's first Andor, that scene. Like it was
Yeah,
I just like I don't know, maybe I'm being mean, but I feel like we got that type of
yeah,
dynamic just so much better just a few months ago that it like made me roll my eyes in this just because it was so
yes,
goofy. Um
I agree.
but I do like the Imperial spy lady. I think
Yes.
she's an interesting character, and I would like to see more of her. One, I'm gonna be an asshole for a second. Uh, nitpick the uniform design of the Rebel Alliance. I don't think it works when the uniforms are this clean when they're like in control. I think I like in the old
Okay.
movies, like all the rebels, like they're kind of dirty and grimy. And I think the aesthetic of their uniforms and stuff like really works in that context. But it just didn't look right to me in clean rooms and sets for whatever reason.
I get that. Yeah, where everything's like eggshell white, even the costumes. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's like and like
eggshell white on red.
yeah, they just don't feel lived in anymore. And I know that's a nitpick. I'm sorry. I'll counter it by saying one element I really did like that is more tied in with this. I think the idea that all of these like Imperial warlords, like Moff Gideon and all of them, are not separate entities, but
Mm-hmm.
secretly working together, and the scattered nature of their operations is a veil hiding their
Mm-hmm.
true intention. I thought that was a really good twist, and it's
Yes.
more interesting than what I thought it was going to be. So, and it makes the threat more imposing. And we get a little like, oh my God, Thrawn's coming. That guy, Pelion from the book I just read, is in there. And Hux's dad
Ooh,
is one of the people
yeah.
in there. So, that was a cool reveal. I liked that. But
I liked that too. I liked that scene until the end of that scene. I thought it got goofy. Like when
mhm.
Gideon's doing his speech and he twirls around and his cape twirls with him. I thought I just laughed. I was like, that looks silly.
I had this note for later, but I'll just say it here because I agree it did look silly. And Moff Gideon is a cartoon character. Like he does
Mm-hmm.
not belong in a live action show. He belongs in an animated series, and I think he would look or work great there. In this show, I cannot take him seriously. He's so silly. Like,
I get
especially
that.
at the
Yeah.
end when he has like my best scar special made suit. And he has little spikes on his helmet. It's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's like, okay, dude, you're a little over the top there.
Yeah. But again, like in a cartoon, great. That would be
Yes.
perfect for a cartoon. But it just does
I
not work in live action. His
yeah.
character design. And Giancarlo Esposito is a great actor. I don't think he's very good in this.
Yeah, I definitely liked him better in the first season,
Mm-hmm.
like when he like kind of they have that standoff. I think like it's in episode 7, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like
Yeah.
surrounding the little cantina, and it's like, oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
the first time we're meeting this guy.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Like I think that's a great introduction.
I agree. It's great in season 1, and he's like ruthless. He just shoots into the compound, even though Werner Herzog's still in there.
Yeah, right. He's just brutal. So I think he works really well that season, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this one as much.
Yeah. Another thing I'm little on the fence about. How do we feel about Mando's cult that he's a part of? And I've gotten some pushback in the last couple weeks for referring to it as a cult, but I kind of think it's a cult. How do
Oh, it's
you?
absolutely a cult. This is such a cult. It's ridiculous. They have these little traditions and everything, and
Yeah.
they all stay each other. They're secluded. This is literally the definition of a cult. Like,
Yeah.
minimize outside contact. You have these very constrictive rules, and you have a creed you need to follow, and you have a leader that you're following as well, who's
Mm-hmm.
dictating the way. This is textbook
Okay.
definition of a cult,
All right.
in
Well,
my opinion.
I
In my
feel
opinion.
better about my take then. But I went into this season, especially after like the last couple of seasons of the show, thinking that this was a group that he was kind of on his way towards separating from a little bit. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a very
Oh, okay.
repressive environment. And they never take their helmets off, which when almost all of your characters have their fucking helmets on the entire time, it really does make it hard to connect with the characters. Which is
Yes.
probably why Bo-Katan is more relatable than a lot of people in this season, because she's the only one whose face we fucking see. And you can only get so far off of the strong silent type, slight nods here and there. Like there's just nothing going on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I like my read on the Mandalorian as a character is he's this kind of loner bounty hunter who stumbles across this little creature that he comes to love and wants to take care of. And he's sort of leaving bounty hunting behind over the first couple seasons. And it seemed to me like he would start taking his helmet off more and opening himself up to the outside world a little bit more. But instead, he goes back and he seeks this redemption that I don't think he really needs to do, to go bathe in the living waters or whatever, and then just falls right back in and brings his kid
Yeah.
with him. The perfect cult member.
You're
Recruits their
indoctrinated
baby.
now. Yeah. You're here for life. Yeah.
And the
I,
show
I
is not painting them as, the show doesn't want me to think they're weird, I don't think.
no, I don't think so. I think because I agree. I think that there is some weird decisions along the way of the
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian's journey and his relationship with this cult. However,
Yeah.
they did kind of rescue him as a baby, or not as a baby, as like a child from
Mm-hmm.
the battle droid attack. And I think that was just Death Watch who saved him in general, or at least a faction, and then that's where it kind of
Maybe.
splintered out. But like, I, it is a cult, and I also really appreciate the parts of the season that build lore around that cult and the
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian culture in general. Like the training and the hunting party sequences were really cool. Just to, like, understand their way of going about training and like
Mm-hmm.
disciplining their foundlings and stuff like that. The progression from foundling to, I think it was like apprentice, or
Yeah,
something like that.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of just neat, and how they kind of integrate the water into the ceremonies. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
passing of the torch in a way, or just like, it's a special time, it's a ceremony. And then you have these diverse factions with these different values, the the ones that follow the armor, they all have their helmets on, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
see any, they never take off their helmets, but they don't see any value in the dark saber. And then it's the complete opposite for Bo-Katan's
Mm-hmm.
clan. Basically, they're like, yeah, you can't lead us unless you have the dark saber, but we'll take off our helmets and we'll do all this other kind of
Right.
shit. And then I
You
really
can't
thought
lead
that,
us, but this other guy can lead us. He doesn't have the
yeah,
dark saber, but we'll follow him.
right, like, okay, right on. And then I thought I can't remember if they've done it before. I think this was the first time that they showed it, but it was like the group meeting of the Armorers clan,
Mm-hmm.
in front of the fire, and how they could only speak when they were holding the hammer, and they were talking about these different things that they wanted to. It was like, does anyone else wish to speak? Like they were almost done. And then it's like, no, I want to speak. Like everyone has their turn to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that lore building around their culture this season was, I think, one of the better parts. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it is a cult.
One other element that I did actually like, and I'd forgotten about, regarding what you're talking about, is
Yes.
when they're all eating around the campfire, and Bo-Katan asks, "How do you eat?" And they don't eat together. They all go find somewhere. Like I think it's dumb and impractical, but it is a natural extension of their little subculture, and I thought that was an interesting detail. It's like, yeah, people were probably asking, well, how do they all eat? And it's like they just go wander off and go to do their own thing, and then they come back. I,
Yeah.
it was fine. But I do feel like this season walks back a lot of development in order to return to the status quo. We already
Sure.
talked about
Yes.
reuniting Grogu and Mando. Season 2 ended with Mando taking off his helmet twice, to one, save Grogu, and two, to like say goodbye to him. And then instead of him like dealing with the consequences of that all season, he very quickly redeems himself, and it's just back to being part of it. It feels like we're resetting all of the growth from the first two seasons to just have a pretty static character at this point, though. But
Yes.
you have a couple episodes here that you think really developed or delivered well. So you want to go
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
that, so get some nice things out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we do like a lot of things this season. I know we're coming down on a lot of it, but I think there's some episodes that delivered well, like the 20th episode of the entire series, not
Mm-hmm.
just this season. Like I think I can't remember exactly which number it is. I think it was
Yeah.
halfway point. The Foundling.
Mm-hmm.
We finally got Grogu's backstory with Ahmed Best returning as a Jedi to save him and get him out of Coruscant during Order
Yes.
66, which I thought was a really cool rescue
Mm-hmm.
sequence. And that was also a time with the hunting party and some of that stuff that we were just talking about with the
Yeah.
Mandalorian lore building, which was great. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I thought that was really cool.
And
I'm
I
not
do.
saying
Side note on Ahmed Best, like I enjoyed him in that little role, and it is nice that people are not super shitty to him anymore. He never deserved
yes,
that. Jar Jar is kind of annoying, but he did the job he was hired to do, and he did it pretty well. So,
yes,
like,
yes.
fuck.
That man did his time, and he put in his work, and he's a legend. We love
Yeah.
him.
Well, and he was like his work on Jar Jar was like revolutionary for the time too. Like the
Exactly.
type of performance capture they were doing, and that went on to like contribute to things like we got a couple years later with Gollum. And it's like, and he got fucking shafted for no reason. Like Jar Jar is annoying, but that's not his fault. and
Yeah, that's
and
George's
also
fault.
and also Jar Jar is not the problem with the Phantom Menace. Not even by a long shot.
Nope.
Jar Jar is like the character with the most personality in that entire movie.
Mm-hmm. Everyone else is just a statue, just walking around.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt. You had a
No, you're fine.
thing.
Yeah. And to say, I'm not saying that these episodes are perfect either. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely things I think that could have been improved. I was partial to the pirate episode,
Mm-hmm.
chapter 21. It was like this, it just felt like a good mid-season antagonist sequence.
Yeah.
And just some good world building for the New Republic as well. We got to see some stuff on Coruscant and like how the things are breaking down with the bureaucracy. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the episode with our kind of one bigger cameo that's not a celebrity. I think Zev
Oh, Zeb
from
from Rebels.
Zeb, yeah, from
Zeb,
Rebels. He
yeah.
shows up for like 3 seconds and then he's gone.
Yeah, and this is the type of fan service that doesn't bother me as much,
Yes, me too.
because like it's maybe if I rewatched it, it's more distracting, but it's he shows up. If you don't know who he is, whatever. He's just a guy. If you do know who he is, like, oh, cool, it's Zeb. That's fun.
Yeah.
This episode had me laughing pretty hard though in one point, because, and this is another moment where I thought it felt cheap, because like Carl Weathers, Grief Karga, I think is his character's name.
Mm-hmm.
He like their town gets attacked by the pirates, and he leads everyone on this exodus into the desert to protect them. And then like it's a pretty bustling city, but then they get out to the desert and it's like 20 people and they're just
Yeah.
hanging out by a rock.
Yeah.
and,
It's a very small population.
and it's like, come on, guys. you're Disney. You have money for this. Like, plop a couple digital extras back there or something. Because it the thing that started the conflict with the pirates was that the bar became a school. I barely saw any fucking kids at this rock. Like, who's in the school?
That's so true.
But it's just one of those things. It seems like a nitpick, but it's really not, because it's distractingly little people for how big that city is in every
Yes,
shot of it.
I agree.
Like, come on.
They could have done a little bit more for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, none of these episodes are perfect for sure, and I
No.
think this next one, I think people will agree it's not perfect. It's the Guns for Hire one, chapter 22, where we got these odd cameos of Jack Black and Lizzo, being the leaders of this little system.
Christopher
Which
Lloyd was in this one too. Doc Brown from
Yes,
Back to the Future.
yeah, he was. It was cool to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a little distracting.
Yeah, but honestly, this is one of my favorite episodes of the season. It's
It's
the
fun.
most adventure of the week episode. It, for the most part, has a storyline that is fully contained to it, and I think it is mostly fun. There's a goofy
Yes,
little like foot chase through the city.
yes, yes. I was so excited actually to see like live action battle droids. I was like, oh my god, it's these battle droids doing things like we haven't seen this technically since like 2005. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of cool to see them. And we got some good character development with Bo-Katan in this
Yeah.
episode as well, which was cool to see. And I think, yeah, the concept, like I touched on this a little bit earlier too, but
Mm-hmm.
the concept of just taking these former Imperial droids, reprogramming them, repurposing them for regional governments was a
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. That's just fascinating to me. And then we even got mentions of these like off the cuff things that like I don't think I expected from a mile away. Just like Count Dooku was right. It's like what the fuck? Where did that come from? Like, so that was just fun.
Yeah. But
There was
you first, so I'll go.
I was just gonna say there was something that I saw somewhere posted online. I think it was like a tweet or an Instagram post or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. It was just a suggestion, because I did find the Jack Black and Lizzo cameos a little jarring. So their idea was those two musicians should have just been like musicians in the background at some cantina.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of an interesting idea because it would fit their real life personas, for one thing. It would also have allowed them to maybe contribute to the Star Wars discography. So they could have introduced a whole new song
Okay.
to like Star
Sure.
Wars in general, which is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it would have distracted as many viewers. Like just how we were talking about with Zeb, it's just like he's there for a little bit. We don't need him in the whole episode. Just a quick little thing, move on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they were a little out of place. Maybe they weren't.
Sure.
I think they worked pretty well though overall.
I didn't mind them. I like both of them, and I'll have Jack Black in anything, man. He's
Yes,
fucking
he's awesome.
hilarious. I one thing, this isn't really a critique about this episode specifically, but this episode deals with it a lot, and Solo, a Star Wars story, does too. I think the writers at Lucasfilm need to think very carefully about continuing to pursue this like droid rights, droid sentience thing that they keep
Mm-hmm.
introducing, because it's like, yeah, if you've ever thought too long about Star Wars, you think about the fact that droids are sentient beings and that our main characters just own them. And it's never brought up. Yeah, that's a little fucked up, right? But okay. Mandalorian pretty explicitly like hates most droids. In this episode, he's just fucking kicking them, you know?
Yes.
So like, okay, or do we want him to be a racist? Because that is what he will be if you pursue this. And also, by the time of the sequels, the dynamic between organic beings and droids has not changed. So now you're going to have people wondering, like, okay, so there are beings here who feel like they are slaves and second class citizens who want liberation. And they're just never getting it. And none of our main characters ever give a shit about this plight. So it's like,
Yeah.
if you are going to pursue this, you need to understand that will color our perceptions and future generations' perceptions of all of our main characters for this whole saga. Do you want that? If so, keep doing this. If not, I would stop. Like,
Yeah. That's a very good point, and one that I hope they listen to. Fingers
Um,
crossed.
yeah, but I kind of alluded to it already. The one of two biggest problems this season has is I don't feel as though our main characters, especially Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, in this season, were ever emotionally tested in a way where they have to make any big like character developing decisions. So in previous seasons, let's say in season one, right off the bat, he decides to kill IG-11, I think at the time, and rescue Grogu and deal with the consequences of that. Actually, no, he rescues Grogu later. That's a different thing.
He rescues
But
Grogu multiple times. Yeah.
yeah, but he decides to like steal back the bounty, and he deals with the repercussions of that in season two. When in the Bill Burr episode in season two, when they break into that Imperial compound in the jungle, he has to take his helmet off, breaking his creed in order to access that screen to find Grogu. Still the best scene in the whole show, I think, that scene. Also, no Bill Burr this season, which was surprising. I think his episodes in both previous seasons have been the best episodes of each of them. And also he takes his helmet off at the end of season two, and he allows Grogu to go with Luke. Like those are all big decisions that change how we understand him as a character. He doesn't have anything like that in this season at all, unless I'm forgetting something. And I think that's a really big fucking problem. And I don't really think any characters have any decisions like that. Bo-Katan is probably the closest, but she's more or less the same person at the end of the season that she was at the beginning. She's just in charge.
Yeah. Yeah, she's in charge, and I think she's learned a little bit along the way. She's developed some new relationships, especially with Mando and everything. And it seems like she's adopted parts of the Mandalorian culture, at least like the armorer's culture, at least respects it. So I feel like there's some development there, but I do agree with you that there's not many emotional tests throughout the season, especially for the Mandalorian. But like, yeah, all of our characters kind of across the board, like they don't have too many emotional tests. It's just kind of like, yes, this is status quo. We're just having fun. And
the dude who flies the Star Destroyer into the Imperial base has more character growth than Mando this season. I don't even know his name. I like
it's like Axe Woves, I think, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that sounds right. Something, yeah, cool. But yeah,
name. Like like even last season, he was like, I'm not working with these guys, like, and all that stuff. And this season, he was the leader of his little group, and then he changed, and was willing to kind of almost sacrifice himself for Mandalore and for Bo-Katan.
I know. Watching that scene though, watching the Star Destroyer fall, and he like kept sitting there. I'm like, dude, you can leave. Like, you can go. I'm glad that he did, because I was kind of like, there's no reason for you to keep sitting here. Like, come on.
Yeah, me too. I was like, come on, dude, just get out there. Yeah.
the other big thing, and this, I'm curious if you agree with this or not. This may just be a me thing, but the biggest Achilles heel of the season, I think, is I do not feel like the show did enough to make me care about retaking Mandalore. So everything in pursuit of that goal falls totally flat for me. And like, before I get into it, I get it. It's your ancestral homeland. I understand the drive to get that back or whatever. I'm just not invested in it because I don't think there's any like reason for it really. And it made the entire season, I was thinking they're building towards a Thor Ragnarok thing where Asgard isn't a place, it's a people. After Mando is offered the plot of land outside of Navarro City or whatever, and they all go there and hang out for a little bit. I thought what they were building towards is that, oh, we as Mandalorians, we've lost this planet. It was our home. But in order to survive and thrive, we need to move forward and build something new. Maybe re-examine some of our traditions and ways that got us into this mess and move forward as a people, integrate with this town. But no, they just end up retaking Mandalore. And I think that's kind of a problem because it's just it's like the season starts, they want to do thing A, and then they do it. They don't, and like, also, from who are they trying to retake Mandalore? Turns out the Empire is there, but they didn't know that. As far as they knew, it was a toxic, deserted planet. As soon as they find out it's not toxic, what's the holdup? Like, just go
Yeah,
if you want
right.
it. There were no stakes for this conflict until the very end, and it was treated as a twist. And I didn't care, and I think it would have been more interesting for them to grow and move forward. What do you think about that?
I get where you're coming from with that, and I do partially agree with you because it does kind of feel like that is what they're building towards, but it's very slow when it's not on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like we're reuniting the clans, and I don't entirely see the value of Mandalore.
Yeah.
I don't think that was fully described to us, and I think that would have helped illuminate things for us because like the living waters, okay, is that where you get Beskar from? Like I wasn't clear if that's the only place you can get Beskar from. Like I know it's your ancestral home, like you were saying, but
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, at the end of the day, what is the value of this planet to you guys beyond just the sentimental value? Like is there a
Right.
strategic reason? Are there resources here? Like none of
Mm-hmm.
that was very clearly explained to me.
Yeah, and it's just like it's in the same way I feel that Din Djarin his character didn't really grow. I don't feel like the Mandalorian people really grew all that much. It's like, yeah, they reunite these two disparate groups of people. There really isn't all that much conflict surrounding that. There's like one fight. Um, and I don't know what the ideology of Bo-Katan's crew is, so I don't know where the conflict is
True, yes.
here. Um, and they seem like resentful of the covert because they were Death Watch or descended from Death Watch, but like, am I wrong in remembering? But wasn't Bo-Katan Death Watch in Clone Wars, or did I just make that up?
I can't
Because I
remember. It's
thought
been
she
so long.
was for a while and then changes her ways at the end, but I just like I don't know. It just doesn't. It feels like they got into the mess they're in because they're a very rigid and in some cases a little bit silly people. Like
Mm-hmm.
Bo-Katan is a perfectly qualified leader. Why do you care so much that she didn't win the sword in some dramatic way? Like, come on, guys.
Yes, it's these people hanging on to these like archaic notions
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
of reality.
it almost feels like the prequel Jedi if the prequel Jedi were not purged. You know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
like if the prequel Jedi just like win the Clone Wars and win the day without learning and like without anything they do being called into question. That's kind of what it makes me think of.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and I think as a whole, like I think those last two episodes I did enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the final two where Moff Gideon's plan is kind of revealed and everything like that. I thought I enjoyed the action in those
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Like honestly, I did enjoy that, and I
I
think
liked Grogu's little knee slide. It was funny.
me too. Yeah, I like Grogu just like piloting the old assassin droid and all that. Like that was so cute. Like like him
It's
just
so
walking around hitting
morbid.
that button, just going like yes, yes,
Yes, yes.
yes, yes. Like I thought that was so funny. At first I was on the fence, but after a while it grew on me, and then it
Yeah.
definitely gave him more agency as well. Like he could actually kind of
Mm-hmm.
do stuff, especially like in that final fight with the Praetorian guards and everything. So I thought it was a unique thing to throw in there.
Yeah. Fucking Praetorian guards, man. It's so funny. It's like just like me and the homies rolling up to try to kill a baby. Like
We got this.
um but the IG-11 like or IG-12 I think they call it when it's a husk. Kind of morbid, like Mando specifically, like it's becoming a tradition in these shows. The Mandalorian will ask his friend for something kind of specific, and the friend
Mm-hmm.
will come back with something that is not what he asked for and does not fulfill the needs of what his request was. So
Mm-hmm.
in I think it happens in the book of Boba Fett with Amy Sedaris's character. He's like, I want another Razor Crest, like another ship, because mine got blown up and she just gives him a fighter jet instead. And I like I'm not seriously upset about this, but I do think it's funny. It's like, okay, the Razor Crest had a bed, had storage, had a toilet. Um,
Yeah.
this new ship, it looks very cool. It has none of those things. If I were the
Yes.
Mandalorian, I would be fucking furious if I asked for a ship like the Razor Crest and I got this in return.
God damn it! Are you kidding me?
And now he goes to Grief Karga, specifically saying, "This droid was my friend, and I would like him repaired." And what he gets instead is a mech suit with no sentience for his baby to drive.
Oh, it's so
It's
absurd.
so fucking funny. And then
Oh,
they try to
it
revive him
happens
at first.
again
Yeah.
earlier too, like in the season where he's like, I want like he goes to that same woman on Tatooine of like, I need to get this like memory strip, and she's like,
Yes,
oh,
you're right.
here's what I'm gonna do
With a
instead. I'm
different
gonna
droid.
change. Yeah, I'm gonna change the design of your ship to house an R2 unit.
Yeah.
Like,
And now he just has to hold Baby Yoda in his lap while he's flying. It's like, I'm sorry. I know it's a very cool ship. It is not functional for the needs of this man.
yeah,
It does not do what he needs it to do.
yeah, right. Oh, I love it. I
Oh
will
my
say
god.
I like one of the things I did enjoy too,
Mm-hmm.
to a lesser extent, was the Jar getting paired up with R4.
Uh-huh. I
I
like that
thought that
too.
was I thought that was very clever because it's like he's this unfazed bounty hunter who's not afraid of anything, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
little R4 who's, oh, I'm scared of every little thing.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked that, and I liked the action scene with the Phantom Menace laser doors, where he's having the droid open
Yeah,
up one at a time and taking out all the guys, and he's getting like more powerful weapons as he goes through. I thought that was kind of fun.
that's cool.
Um, yeah, but yeah, that's all I have to say about that. It's just very funny that like he has bad friends, I guess, who don't listen to
Yeah,
his
they're
wishes
like,
and are not
we'll
very
take your
accommodating.
yeah, we'll take your request, and I'm gonna tweak it just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I heard you said friend. Oh, I thought you said mechanized Astro unit
Gonna
suit. Like,
and then also, oh my god, if someone gave my baby the ability to just go yes, 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 I would kill them. And that would be an
that's
appropriate
fair.
response.
That's more than fair.
Okay, but the last two episodes, you were gonna start talking about why you enjoyed
Oh no,
them
yeah, we.
more.
I mean, it's all connected to the
It's
body
all it's all
of
connected.
IG-11. So,
Who
but
is
I
they
thought
managed to resurrect him for real at the end.
they
A-
did. I thought that was pretty.
another dramatic emotional moment from the first season that is now walked back for some reason. I don't know why this
Mm-hmm.
droid need to come back, but whatever.
Because no one's ever really gone.
Shut up.
um, but what I did like about these last two episodes, was to a certain extent Moff Gideon's
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. Uh, it's not always there because he explains his whole plan, classic evil villain style, to them, just so us as an audience can understand. But why are you explaining it to the Mandalorians? Just kill them all right now. Just like, you do this. But he's kind of a clever villain similar to Thrawn in this aspect, where he learns about the cultures, the technology, and the weaponry that his enemy uses, and he adopts it in a certain
Mm-hmm.
capacity to defeat them. I thought that was very neat how he was like, I'm going to take the Mandalorian armor, and I'm going to take their weaponry, and I'm going to use
Mm-hmm.
it to, enhance my own soldiers, and
Yeah.
then bring in my own kind of like order. And I thought that was unique, and it also kind of, in my opinion, represented a small evolution
Mm-hmm.
in the stagnant Star Wars technology. Like, oh, someone's actually using their head and thinking about how they can, outmatch their
Yeah.
opponents.
You know what I just thought of while you were saying that, and I think this would be interesting if oh, hi Kevin. If so Moff Gideon does use the like tools of his enemies to his advantage a little bit. But what if he's not actually learning about their culture and the reason they use things like that, and that could be a good contrast point between him and Thrawn, who does do that, and it establishes Thrawn as a greater threat than Gideon is. Could be fun. I'm
I
curious
think you're
how.
onto something there.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, the final fight was fine. I think I
Yeah.
did like little baby Yoda just making a little force bubble. It was cute.
I liked it because it was, it was kind of reminiscent. It paralleled Kanan's sacrifice and
Mm-hmm.
Rebels, how he stopped the explosion. And then I think it also is a good callback to the first season with Grogu. He used that kind of force assist to push the fire out of the cantina, against that flame trooper and kind of saved
Oh
everyone's
yeah.
life at the end of the first season. So I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was a nice parallel. But it was kind of funny of him
Yeah.
just sitting there, just like it kind of looked like Elmo,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. Yeah, oh my
With the
gosh.
fire in the
It looked
background.
like the Elmo meme. You're right. At
Mm-hmm.
first I thought I'm glad it was Grogu who saved the day because at first I thought they were going to expect us to accept that Bo-Katan's little baby shield like protected all three of them. um,
Yeah,
I
right.
also thought I thought the fight against the Praetorian guards was so fucking funny. It's just the little puppet just like scampering around on a light and flipping and stuff.
Yeah, that was cute.
It was very
I mean,
cute and very dumb, but I think it works. And he
it works.
ultimately like it works. I will say in the previous episode when the big dude something Vizsla like
Hmm.
sacrifice like he's like I'll hold them off or whatever. Okay, there are a lot more Imperials there in the finale, I will admit, but in the penultimate episode, it really makes it seem like he just killed everyone except the Praetorian guards. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, guys, if you had just stayed, you could have helped him and probably won, but no.
Maybe.
Yeah,
No.
no. But like,
Unfortunately not.
but they do just come back like 10 minutes later. and
I
they
know,
do
yeah.
and they do okay. I guess they're outmatched until the Star Destroyer comes crashing down.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that does help for sure. But yeah, it is
yeah.
kind of silly. And yeah, I like that duel. I also appreciated um it was a little cartoony, like we were saying,
Mm-hmm.
Bo-Katan versus Moff Gideon. Um, the moment that I appreciated in the fight was when he crushed the dark saber. As cool as it is, she doesn't need that sword to rule the
Yeah.
Mandalorian people like we were talking about. But I thought that was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta quote Monty Python here: "Strange
Oh.
women lying in ponds distributing swords is not a basis for a system of government." Like, so you don't need the sword to win or rule. It's also a stupid form of signifying your leader. But I just had to quote that
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I think the dark saber has served its purpose as well. But yeah, I think there is room for this show to correct course a little bit. This season did not work for me. But there's nothing like irredeemable here, you know. Uh
Yes.
there's plenty of potential for these characters to do something interesting. It seems like Mandalorian is going to work for the New Republic on a contractor basis now, which is fun enough. Uh it also seemed like they were writing this so this could be the end of the show if it needed to be, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Um, so do you any final thoughts before we go into other stuff? I have another thing I want to ask, but final thoughts on this show.
No, I think we've hit all the points. Yeah, it's not perfect. I liked the season overall, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for improvement that may have been missed. But yeah, really like the world building, lore building,
Mm-hmm.
action sequences were fun. But yeah, there's just some small things missing. But what were you gonna say?
Well, I'll give some final thoughts first, but the like, I'm just a little disappointed, honestly, in Favreau and Filoni. I've seen both of them do much better work throughout most of their careers, and I think they're both
Mm-hmm.
capable of much better stuff. Just Filoni alone, like Rebels and Clone Wars, they are cartoons for children, but they have some pretty stellar Star Wars material in there, and
Mm-hmm.
the stories overall come together in very satisfying ways. And I don't know what about him jumping into the live action arena, like what got left behind. I,
Mm,
from a writing perspective, obviously, like the animation
yeah.
and art got left behind, but and Favreau, I don't get it. It seems like they have lost touch with what made this show engaging. And I hope they get
Mm-hmm.
back to that in the future. But the thing I wanted to ask is we have a lot of Star Wars stuff upcoming.
Yes.
Most recently, soonish will be Ahsoka. Are you excited for Ahsoka? Do you
I am,
okay?
honestly. I'm into it. I like the trailer, and it's about time that she got her own series too. I think she's a
Mm-hmm.
cool character, and so I hope Yeah, I hope it goes in a good direction, and it seems like it's going to be, a Rebels follow up,
Mhm.
wrapping up some storylines with, Ezra and Sabine. So I'm excited to
Thrawn
kind of
as
see,
well.
yeah, and Thrawn too. So I'm just excited to see those characters back too. Like,
Hmm.
there was for the longest time, you remember, Dylan, I was like, I'm not watching Rebels, and then I watched it, and I was like, I love this. This is
Rebels
this
is
is such a great
great.
show.
It's a
Yeah,
really wonderful show.
so I'm into it.
Um,
Are you excited for Ahsoka? Or
kind of. So like this season has made me much more apprehensive than I was beforehand, but I still maintain that I am upset that Ahsoka is not an animated follow-up to Rebels using a different art style. I like Ahsoka as a character. I do not connect with the live action character in the same way I did in animation. She feels like a totally different person.
Mhm.
I'm worried that I will feel the same about Sabine and Ezra and Hera. Um, it just rubs me the wrong way too that like these characters were created with such love in the animated format, and now all of the performers that brought them to life are just like left behind in favor of live action performers. It just doesn't,
Mhm.
it's never sat right with me. Um, but other than that, yeah, like I'm excited to see Thrawn. I'm a little concerned about the concept of the Mandoverse, as Kathleen Kennedy dubbed it, and the fact that
Mhm.
it's all culminating in a Dave Filoni directed movie 7 years from now. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but in terms of future Star Wars stuff, I'm much more excited about Andor season 2, Visions volume 2, and the
Yes.
Acolyte. The Acolyte
Yes.
seems really cool. Uh, but the new Jedi Survivor game is coming out soon. I can't play it because I don't have a system that can run it right now, but we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, right. I'll
uh,
get there when I get there,
yeah,
but yeah, there will never be no Star Wars content for
yeah,
us.
and
This
the
is
like
the world we
Ray,
live in.
the like Ray movie that Finn will apparently be in as well. I guess no one gives a shit about Poe Dameron. I'd like him to be back as well. I like him, but fuck that, I guess.
Yeah.
If that maybe that'll turn out to be nice, but you know, I think I'm in the same emotional place with Star Wars that I have been for a little while. It's like some of it's good, some of it's not. And
Hmm.
but yeah, that is going to be that. Let me put down this time code and then we'll talk
Yeah.
about
Let's
other stuff.
yeah, we'll transition to our last segment of the show that we like to talk about. Just other stuff that we're doing, watching, reading, playing,
Mm-hmm.
discovering, exploring, all kinds of stuff. Dylan,
Yep.
what have you been up to?
So I think I finished Heir to the Empire after our last episode, the first
Think so.
original Thrawn book from Legends. Decently fun overall at the end of the day. The way Luke, Han, and Leia are written, it's very uninteresting. They, like we were talking about with Mando this season, like they don't really grow or change in any significant way at all. They are very
Mm.
static, um, annoyingly so. And like I've said previously, I understand how if this is how they were written in the EU, how people who grew up loving that would really resent episode 7 and 8, because episode 7 and 8 treat them like real people who grew and changed in the decades since we saw them. And
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I think that's better. But I do think Thrawn is a really interesting antagonist. His right hand, like Captain Pelion, who we see in The Mandalorian, I thought was a very interesting character, and the dynamic the two of them have, I enjoyed a little bit. It's like this Pelion guy's constantly in fear that Thrawn is going to lash out in anger like Vader would do, and he's
Hmm.
like always surprised when Thrawn doesn't do that. Um, and there's like this running theme in his head about like maybe Endor would have been different if this guy had been there instead of Vader and the Emperor. And I think that's a really interesting thing. I
Hmm.
like Mara Jade, who will eventually become Luke Skywalker's wife. I thought she was a fun character. They like get paired up and have to survive a jungle together for the second half of the book, and she just fucking hates him and wants to kill him but can't. um,
Hmm.
so that was fun, but it's all right. But I also went to see Suzume, sorry, which was a wonderful, beautiful anime film about a teenage girl who comes across this like guy who closes doors to prevent things from happening. And I don't want to say anything more about it because I went in totally blind and it was just stunning. It's so good.
Sweet.
I would recommend that. Go see it in theaters before it leaves. I don't think it's going to be in theaters super long. I also have started reading the newest Brandon Sanderson book, the one of the ones I kickstarted, Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is a
Cool.
delightful read so far. There's a character who goes across like a bunch of Sanderson series called Hoyd, and Hoyd is in this book, and he's also the narrator of this book, which is a lot of fun because he has a very playful tone of voice, which is goofy and entertaining. But the story is this girl, Tress, lives on a very small island, and for circumstances that the plot machinates, that's not a real thing to say, she has to leave her little isolated island illegally and sail across the sea. But the seas in this universe are not liquid. They are fluidized spores. And this is real, actually. Sanderson did a video on the science of this, but apparently when you push air up through sand, the sand basically behaves like water. So boats can move and skim across the top. But in this universe, like they sail across the spore seas, but if the spores get moist, they can like explode. So like if you accidentally drank a spore, it would just explode and like rip your head apart and stuff like that. So it's a
Wow,
very
that's
dangerous
neat.
prospect. Really creative. I'm loving it so far. I'm maybe like a fifth of the way through it. And I've been watching Succession. So much Succession. I'm almost caught up. I'm going to finish season 3 tonight. But enough about me. What have you been engaging with the last couple weeks?
God damn. This and that. I watched the season finale for RuPaul's Drag Race season 15. Very happy with the winner. I'll spoil it for everyone because I don't know how many Drag Race fans watch this podcast or tune in. But Sasha Colby, my queen, she won. She just blew me away.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very cool finale. One of the best ones, honestly. I was very pleased with how this season went down. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one, but I do, do like her a lot. And my long pilgrimage on Attack on Titan continues. I'm still in season 3, but we're getting through it, and it's I've just been so obsessed with it. Like Dylan and I were talking about this before, like in the past few days about which show do I prioritize, The Mandalorian or Attack on Titan? I'm like, I want to know what happens next more in Attack on Titan than I do in Mandalorian. And it's just because it's a lot of reasons, but it's because the character development in that show is just so excellent.
It's really good.
It's just profound. And then we just started this very interesting show the other day. It's called Jury Duty. And I don't know if you've heard of it. It's on Amazon, and it's a reality TV show. So the premise is it's a fake case in a real courtroom.
Okay.
Everyone in the courtroom is an actor, so they're paid.
Oh, I saw a picture of this today.
Yes.
But I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, except for one guy. There's one guy on the jury who thinks it's real.
Oh my God.
And so they're doing like these interviews, kind of documentary style throughout the trial. And we've only watched the first episode, but it gets really funny. It's so clever. And like, everyone's in on the joke except for this one guy, but he's got like such like kind of a good attitude that it's like, I'm sure he won't be that mad by the end when he realizes it's all been like the last 4 weeks of his life have been a lie. So we've been enjoying that. I can't wait to see where that one goes, but it's very funny. And it is kind of an interesting insight into the legal realm. It's very minimal, but my girlfriend, she's going to be a lawyer, so every like 5 seconds during the show I'm turning to her like, is that really how that happens? Like, can you confirm? And she's like, yeah, they can do that if they want. So it's very interesting stuff.
That is interesting. Speaking of reality TV, actually, because the boom in reality TV in the 2000s was precipitated by the writer's strike, and we are on the verge of another writer's strike. So one, get ready for a lot of reality TV, but two, like, best of luck to all of those going on strike. I hope your demands are met very quickly because you guys deserve it. So You know,
Yes, they do.
support to the workers of the industry that we love. Reminder to you guys in the audience about our original trilogy Star Wars retrospective that will be on Play Pause Rewind videos on what day is the 4th? On Thursday of next week, May the 4th. And do you know what our next episode is, Niles? Or would you like me to tell you now?
Tell me now.
Guardians of the
I don't.
Galaxy 3. We
That's
are
right. Yes,
yeah.
Guardians. I forgot about
So
that.
that is what we are doing on May the 4th. Excited to talk about that. It looks great. It looks like maybe a return to form for Marvel. And that'll be 2 weeks from when you're listening to this. So tune back in for that. Until then, though, Niles, where can people find you on the internet?
You can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. What about you? Where can people follow you, Dylan?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Twitch at D-Day_movies, on YouTube at D-Day Movies, and right here on Play Pause Rewind and Play Pause Rewind videos. Please go support the second channel. It's new and it's a baby. And also we're on TikTok, Play Pause Rewind _podcast. I have been working on a new batch of those to start releasing. I ran out of them while I was traveling, so I had to make them. But
Sweet.
thank you all so much for listening and watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you liked the show on audio or video, please send it to your friends and family so they can like it as well. Thank you guys
Yeah.
so much. Peace.
Bye.